Welcome, everybody, and to our new members, the first meeting of the Investment Board. And this is part of our new governance arrangements as we are with our integrated settlement. I'm hoping it's going to speed up decision making and make us more efficient to deliver for the people of West Yorkshire. And I'm really, really delighted that Kirklees Council have agreed to their leadership last night. Congratulations to Sarah Wood, who will now be leader, and also the nomination to this committee, Councillor Stephen Dransfield. Thank you so much for coming. I do not assume you've read the papers, but I do appreciate you making the effort this morning in your first engagement on this board. Thank you. So new faces around the board, a new board, and here to deliver. So thank you so much. Miles, any apologies?
There are no apologies for absence, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Do any members have any interest they wish to declare on any item on the agenda? Yes, Councillor Courtney.
Yes, so it's not pecuniary, but I am working at the retrofit hub in Todmorden, and there is obviously the loans for retrofit are on the agenda, which we wouldn't be benefiting from as an organisation, but just for full transparency, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I check, Nikki, whether Councillor Courtney needs to recuse herself from that vote?
No, given the nature of the organisation at which she's employed, this is all declared under her interests as a member of the Combined Authority. It doesn't create a direct conflict, but where certain matters do, I've discussed this matter and Councillor Courtney will make those declarations. But for today, no, it's just for information.
And thank you so much for doing that. Perfect. Good stuff. Okay, moving on. There are no exempt items today, which means we can press on as normal. Thank you. Just got the nod. Very good. So the next item on the agenda is the Mayor's update. Well, it's the first meeting of this board, so not much to say. But I'd like to put on record that I'm heartbroken about England last night. And I don't know about anybody else. I have a bit of a thick head. But we continue with that determination that England showed in the game. But I'd also like to put on record, I met with the Chancellor on Monday in Darlington, maybe number 11 North, alongside other mayors to discuss the ongoing work to progress to fiscal devolution, which will be an absolute game changer for us as a region and end the begging bowl culture of having to go back to Whitehall and Westminster to bid into funding rounds. So it's ongoing work, and I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes with officers to try and get that into good shape. Also, you know, looking at a proportion of income tax, how that can stay in our region, and how that can be devolved here as a mayoral strategic authority. And as a mature mayoral strategic authority, one of only 7 in the country, I do think we are in a very good position to really lean into fiscal devolution. And I know, given that the new Prime Minister is an ex-mayor, I know that the new Prime Minister will be keen to get this over the line as well when he's appointed on Monday. Okie doke, so moving on to governance arrangements, item 5. This is a report on the governance arrangements for this new investment board. Can I ask Nikki Deal, our Assistant Director for Legal, Governance and Compliance, to introduce the report? Nikki, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. This is the first item on the agenda in relation to governance arrangements. On the 25th of June at the annual meeting, the new board was constituted under the Constitution alongside approving the terms of reference. The terms of reference set out the detail and the remit under which you will be making decisions for Investment Board. And the Investment Board has a broad remit in investment priorities for the region in general areas of competency, but also specific areas of investment and economic priority areas and matters that require transport investment, and also taking programmes through the assurance framework. As you'll see, there's information within the terms of reference in relation to quorum and how that operates, alongside the voting rules, which is by simple majority members. This is a change that has come along via the Devolution Act, whereby by show of hands, whether you're voting for, against or abstaining, in order for that matter to pass, it must be a simple majority and include the mayor or the deputy mayor within that vote. That is a matter and a rule of law, and that is something that's enshrined within our constitution. In addition to that, there is a point in relation to membership. Given that Kirklees have now appointed their leader, we have received notification formally this morning that Councillor Dransfield is a member of this investment board, and Councillor David Birch will be your substitute going forward. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. The papers are there for noting by the board.
Thank you. And any questions on the governance arrangements? Councillor Judson, if you'd introduce yourself and maybe, as we're all new to each other, maybe your local authority.
Yes, I am Councillor Judson. I am representing Bradford Metropolitan District Council. I am the Deputy Leader of Bradford, and I'm also the portfolio holder for planning, regeneration and the economy. Thank you. My question was just regarding, I don't know whether to bring it up at this point or not, but our representative, Councillor Ian Eglin, is stepping down as representative and becoming substitute, and I am to be his permanent replacement. I just want that put on record. If we need to vote on that, I don't know how it works. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nikki.
I can make those amendments under my delegation because it's a nomination from your council. So thank you for noting that, and if that could be recorded in the minutes.
Councillor Ingle.
Hi, my name is Keith Ingle. I'm the councillor for Calderdale. I'm the cabinet member for economic regeneration, which includes planning and housing. Forgive my ignorance, being a newbie to this operation, this organisation. I was just wondering, but given the scope and breadth of the activities we'll be discussing and voting and pushing through, will there be an organisational structure of support groups within the context, under the umbrella of WICA, or will it be expected that we will bring it through from our respective councils?
An excellent question. Thank you, Councillor Ingle. And you are absolutely right that with this new structure, this committee will have a very wide remit, and the knowledge, the expectation of knowledge is wide and deep. So can I hand over to Nikki?
So, Councillor Ingle, you're right. The remit is very broad and wide, and as officers, we will support members alongside your own teams within your constituent councils. There's a lot of activity that happens behind the scenes and interaction with our constituent councils, given that we are a combined authority and we're working together. And a lot of the directors are here to support you, give you briefings, and we're hoping to introduce more interaction and engagement outside of the board, so you're fully focused on what's coming forward and what schemes, background and details are, including regeneration proposals, planning, because we recognise that with a lot of these funding models and investment decisions, they shouldn't be treated in isolation. This is a dual approach.
Thank you. And can I just reassure you, Councillor Ingle, when I first became mayor 5 years ago, I am quite embarrassed how little I knew. And every day is a school day. We are all learning every day, so there is no such thing as a stupid question. But what I would encourage members to do is to really lean into the learning in the first few months, because that way we can speed up decision making. But if you need anything at all, this organisation is here to help you. This is why we're here. And reach out to officers or myself in the first instance if you want particular briefings. There's things that you need to know more about, but your officers in your local authority will also be able to help you, because they'll have been briefed from us as well. But it's a team sport, and we want to make sure you've got all the information that you need. Thank you. Any further questions about the governance? No? Thank you so much. Okie doke. So can we note the governance arrangements is approved by the CA board at its annual meeting that on the 25th of June 2026. So we just note that. We don't have to vote on it, do we,
No,
Nikki?
if it's for noting,
it's just noted.
we're not batching your recommendation.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, moving on to project approvals and the introduction. This is a really important paper because it sets out how the CA makes decisions about investing public money in projects and programmes across West Yorkshire. The process helps ensure funding is directed towards schemes that deliver those benefits for our communities and represent, of course, good value for money for taxpayers, and also gives assurance decisions are made that are consistent, transparent and accountable, giving residents, partners and government confidence in how investments are made. Ultimately, this is to make sure that projects are delivered properly and investments we approve help create those stronger, better connected, more prosperous communities across West Yorkshire. So if I could invite Sarah Eaton, our Director of Strategy, to take us through the report, please. Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome to all members. The report is basically an introduction report to the next stage of approvals that you're going to be looking at in the board. And essentially, what this is setting out are, as the Mayor has just mentioned, it's outlining basically how we take projects and programmes through the combined authority through to decision making in line with our assurance process. And the paper kind of outlines detail around our West Yorkshire local assurance framework. This framework was developed as part of the 2015 growth deal with government, and it's been reviewed and refreshed on an annual basis since that time. The framework's really important because it does set out those kind of necessary practices and standards to make sure that when we're making decisions they are overfunding, that they are and how they are implemented, that those decisions are proper, transparent, and they deliver value for money. And that we agree that framework with the government to give the government assurance that we are taking decisions that, given the significant amount of resource that comes through the combined authority, following those processes. We're currently working to the 2025 local assurance framework, and we are currently working on a refresh of that document for 2026. It's important that we do that, and this year's is more important than usual, particularly given that we've got the integrated settlement, which is implementing new kind of processes and procedures as a result of that. But also to make sure that on a regular basis we're looking at how agile we are with the assurance framework, whether we can make improvements, as the Mayor said, to make sure that we're taking decisions at speed, but doing that in line with the kind of the standards and the practices that we need to implement. As the paper kind of outlines in terms of investment decisions, every decision we take is in accordance with the process stages set out in the assurance framework, and that framework provides almost like a step-by-step guide, and there's some detail of that in the paper, which I won't go into today. You will have seen that. Essentially, unless otherwise stated, every scheme that comes forward will at one point or other come to this board or will go to the combined authority for decision. And as the paper sets out, decisions that are over £40 million will go to the combined authority because of the nature and the scale of the funding that is allocated to them. Every scheme will follow kind of a pathway, a bespoke work pathway. And before any decision comes forward, decision makers need to be satisfied that the scheme is progressing as part of that process. The diagram in the document sets out kind of the decision-making points. It shows kind of 3 key stages and 7 activities in there. Not every scheme will follow every single point. We look at that pathway to make sure it's the best pathway for that particular scheme or project. And where schemes are less complex, for example, we would do something called a business justification case, which is a 1-stage approval, and that is for schemes that are less complex, require less kind of oversight. The paper sets out our approach to business cases, and as you'll see in there, we follow kind of the Green Book, which mandates several criteria for scheme promoters, and we talk to your colleagues and other colleagues about those on a regular basis to make sure that we're following the right pathway. The important part in the document is that need to kind of constantly ensure that we're providing value for money, and it sets out there some of the methodologies that we use. So we will often look for a BCR, which is a benefit cost ratio, which is part of the business case development, but we also look at other criteria to kind of balance other economic, environmental and social factors that might be realised if we take that scheme forward, which is an important part of some of the schemes that we may be looking at. As project approvals come forward, they will generally now follow the 9 competencies that we're using to kind of align our functions and responsibilities. They're set out in the recent enacted English Devolution and Community Empowerment Act, and there are 9 of those competencies. Not all, we won't be bringing forward schemes at every point through all 9 of those areas. Obviously, projects that come forward have got a particular rhythm of their own, and you'll see today that we're only looking at projects that fall within 6 of those thematic areas. And I'll stop there now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Sarah, you can provide reassurance that the changes in the government's approach to the Green Book are reflected in our assurance process, that it's not just about value for money or BCR, it is now about growth and the impact on communities.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Any comments or questions? I think we'll struggle with the coastal communities competency. That's definitely not in our remit. Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, very glad to see a mention of social value in the report, because I think, and we'll see later on in the papers, you know, there's a lot of inward investment, a lot of growing of and development of sectors and stuff, but actually all of the extra value that then is put in through social value, through, you know, whether it's apprenticeships or helping local communities or whatever it is in those schemes. I just think that it's really good to see that mentioned, and really positive about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we want our assurance process to be rigorous, but we also want it to be reflective of the scale of the project, so that things aren't held up by a one-size-fits-all. So that flexibility and agility, I think, is really important from the team. And I have seen how in the last few years we have changed that process to be more reflective and supportive of projects earlier on to get better outcomes later on. Thank you. Okie doke. So everybody happy to note the content of the report? Thank you so much. Moving on to item 7, the transport and local infrastructure. You'll know that transport is going to be a huge area of focus for us over the next few years, with bus franchising, buying of depots, with the tram, and other investments. This first report covers the transport and local infrastructure theme, including bus hotspots, South Accommodation Road Scheme, which is an important scheme in Leeds. And I'll ask Simon Pope, our Transport Capital Programme Director, to set out further details. And then, as a lead scheme, if I may ask Councillor Salma Arif to comment, please. But also, do I need to accuse myself, as I live near this? No, I don't. Okay, very good. Okay, Simon, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So this first project approval forms part of the wider Bus Hotspots Improvement Programme, which involves smaller scale improvements at specific locations that experience significant bus delays. Other schemes within the programme have already been approved for delivery at other hotspot locations in neighbouring authorities across West Yorkshire. South Accommodation Road, for those that don't know, provides a key route into Leeds from the south and east of the city, with 16 buses an hour carrying an average of 600 passengers. Bus journeys typically take much longer on the busiest morning of the week compared to the quietest, impacting the reliability and punctuality of services. So to address this, the scheme involves converting a general traffic lane to a 24-hour bus lane on the approach to the Atkinson Street roundabout, part signalisation of that roundabout to reduce congestion caused by traffic joining at the junction, and changes to pedestrian and cycle facilities to give a more direct route for those living and working in the area. A significant reduction in bus journey times is predicted to result, alongside enhanced reliability of services. The costs for the scheme have increased from those that were previously approved by the Combined Authority in 2024 due to the signalisation of the roundabout that has been introduced in direct response to public and stakeholder feedback to limit any impact on general traffic. Despite this higher cost, the scheme still represents a strong case for investment, with improved bus journey times and service reliability fully aligned with our local transport plan policy objectives and providing a significant contribution to our integrated settlement outcome targets. So the project approval recommends that the scheme proceeds into delivery, and that the Combined Authority's funding towards the scheme is increased by £655,000 to £791,000. A further £15,000 is then to be provided by Leeds City Council to cover resurfacing costs. So subject to the board's approval, works will start on site in October and are due to complete in December.
Thank you. And it's not just about the 7 minutes saved, is it? It's about the reliability. You know how long your journey is going to be to get into work. And I think that's what puts people off choosing buses, because you don't know how long your journey is going to be because of traffic. So I think this is an important consideration, just not the 7 minutes, but that reliability as well. Councillor Arif.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Councillor Salma Arif. I am the Deputy Leader for Leeds City Council with executive responsibility for economy, which includes culture and sports. very supportive of the scheme. Whilst I don't live close by, Mayor, what I can say, I do know South Accommodation Road. It is an incredibly busy road, and it's worth pointing out also that we've got people coming in from Castleford, Pontefract and Wakefield, so everybody in the region will benefit from this scheme. I know, having spoken to the members as well, that they are supportive of the scheme. I think it'll be a really positive, and it's much due, to be honest with you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Any further questions, comments? Super, thank you so much. Okay, for the bus hotspots South Accommodation Road Scheme, the Investment Board, subject to conditions and with reference to 4.12 and 4.13 in the report, 1, approves that the bus hotspot South Accommodation Road Scheme proceeds through decision point 2 to 4 and work commences on activity 5, which is delivery. 2, approves the combined authority funding of £654,734, taking the total amount to £791,000, and the total scheme cost is £805,642. 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary attached to the report. So now if we could vote on these recommendations, please. All those in favour, if you could raise your hand. Thank you. All those against, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Thank you so much. That has been carried. Moving on to skills and employment. This is 2 schemes under the skills and employment theme. The first is something I know as councillors you will all really understand, which is a way to address the tutors shortage in further education. It's been raised by countless colleagues across West Yorkshire and FE colleges, because without addressing this issue, we simply won't have enough courses for our young people to access the skills they need to get on. And our businesses, importantly, will not have the skilled workforce they need to grow. So if I could invite Felix Kumian-Pofo, our Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, to set out details of the scheme. Please, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. And if you permit me, because this is a new board and I've got a number of items today, I'd like to just set the scene about where these projects have come from and why we're doing it, and so hopefully that narrative will inform everything else that follows. Members may know in the local growth plan, which we developed and the Combined Authority approved at the end of 2024, we set out 3 headline barriers to growth, constraints that are hampering or in the way of our economic growing. And that focused on skills or inadequate skills, chronic underinvestment over a period, and also transport connectivity in particular. The papers I'll present today focus on the skills bit, but also investment, particularly into business. In response to those 3 constraints, we set out 5 priorities, headline priorities in the plan. 1 that focused on place, under which we pick up housing and culture and quality of life, transport, which we've just had a paper about, and then the other 3 focus on skills, the region of learning and creativity, and then on business, the last 2 focusing on our key sectors, but also how we work to enable our businesses to succeed. The papers that come today speak to these priorities in particular. And so that is why they've come through to you in this way. And for each of them, there are a set of pieces of evidence at the back of our minds as we work these through. So it's very clear that, for example, employment rates in West Yorkshire, about 3 percentage points below the national average. That's the equivalent of about 50,000 jobs fewer than we should have. In terms of businesses, we have 20,000 fewer businesses than we should have in the region. So that is why we've got papers here today that speak to our support for businesses to ensure that these businesses, more businesses set up here and the ones that are here grow and create jobs in response to the first point I made. When you look at apprenticeships, for example, nationally apprenticeship numbers have been falling since 2018. In the last 6-7 years, it's fallen by 15% or so. And again, we've got a paper here today that speaks to that. In the local growth plan, we had 3 underlying or cross-cutting themes. 1 was on health and well-being. we've got a paper here today on work well that helps us to address that in line with or in conjunction with many other activities that are already underway. So I hope that is helpful in giving you an overall sense of where these projects, these proposals have come from, the underpinning evidence and the rationale, and how they are hooked into our overall strategies and the policies that the Combined Authority has been working on over the last few years. This first one is on skills. And there are two papers in there as the Mayor set out. The first one is on tutor shortages. At 7 further education colleges, the Mayor meets the principals regularly. I meet them quarterly. And one of the first things they talked to me about when I started was the struggle to attract tutors. And when they attract them, they don't stay for as long as they need. A lot of the expertise they need sits in industry. They can't compete with them in terms of the salaries that are paid. This is a national challenge, and in West Yorkshire, we'll not be able to fix this on our own. But what we're doing here, the government is taking note of already, and is watching the pilots that we are putting in place. What we are proposing here is to work with the colleges on recruitment and campaigns there, to work with the colleges when it comes to their work in specific areas where there's acute shortage. So in engineering, in construction, in manufacturing, to work with industry, find out how, with our support, they will be able to lend more of their expertise to these colleges to make sure our students can benefit from that. Because I'm sure you understand much better than I do, this is a supply and demand issue. Even if we have a lot of young people coming through, a lot of learners coming through, if they aren't the tutors, then that learning will not take place. So the first one is seeking your support. This is part of an approval that has already come through, but we have tweaked it because things have changed. So there are 3 things in particular that we are asking for here. One, that we focus on engineering and manufacturing because there is a specific intervention that has now come through on construction. So we're changing the focus so we can focus on those 2, engineering and manufacturing. Second is to change the timeline so it's in line with integrated settlement. So we are in sync and we are not working out of cycle. And then thirdly, there's the change to the outcomes and the outputs that we initially set out. And actually this is a positive change. We are increasing. We haven't learned more about what is possible and engaged with the market. We are increasing. We realize that we can actually do more. So for example, we are saying we'll achieve 40 sessions, each session being 4 hours long as an increase in engagement with industry and the expertise that industry is able to provide to colleges and to learners. So that is what we are seeking in terms of the tutor shortage package. The second one is about skills capital. If you're happy for me to go into that for the sake of time, and then we can take the...
I think we take,
one.
if I may, Nikki, we take them one at a time.
Okay.
So voting.
So-
So if you're
so
happy
I'll
to
stop,
pause there, and then we'll
to
come
that.
back.
Thank you.
But I would say, Felix, you're absolutely right. And Councillor Judson, I was over in Saltaire yesterday talking to the radio frequency and microwave cluster. We've got the space corridor of Shipley and Saltaire. And they were speaking really passionately about their real need for engineering tutors for this incredible radio frequency space cluster that we have, because they just don't have the tutors. So businesses are telling us every meeting I'm attending that we have to get tutors in because colleges can't afford them. So it's a really exciting piece of work. Any questions to Felix on this item about tutors? No? Okay, let's go to approve. So, can we approve the change request to the addressing tutor shortages in further education to increase delivery timescales from the 31st of December 26 to the 31st of March 29? The total scheme costs are 850,000. To change the project scope to remove the construction sector from the Industry Partnership Coordination workstream of the tutor shortages scheme, but leave the engineering and manufacturing sectors within scope, and to increase the outputs as per the report? And 2, can we approve that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary? Can we see a show of hands in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to construction skills capital programme. Thank you, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, the government designated Leeds College of Building as a regional construction technical excellence college.
May I just ask, does that cover the whole of Yorkshire and Humber? It's quite a win for us, that. So it was a good thing.
It definitely was, especially as they are the only specialist building college in the country. So it was a big one, and you and others did a lot of work to secure that. This funding that we are seeking approval for allows us to work with the college, who will then work as the hub, work with their spokes to identify where opportunity exists for us to increase the number of students coming through to study various construction courses, but also, crucially, to improve and radically transform the number that, upon completion, actually end up in the industry, because the attrition rate is much higher than you would expect, given the vacancy rate in that particular sector. So what we are seeking now is to work your approval for us to provide funding to the College of Building, who will in turn work with the industry, work with the hubs, to identify the key projects, the expansion needed, to create more places, and to ensure that this industry has the learners coming through and the employer engagement that it needs for it to meet the demands that we put on it to grow the economy. So that is in short what this one is about.
Thank you. And speaking to Nikki, who runs the College of Construction, the challenge is young people, for example, want to do electrical, or they want to do, I don't know, bricklaying or whatever, or plumbing, and they don't get the course they want. They do another one like business. They don't engage with it. It's not what they wanted to do, so they fall out of college, and then they become a NEET. So we've got to ensure that their first choice is available, so that we can set them off on their ambitious pathway into construction. So I'm really pleased to see this because capital is a real challenge for FE colleges because they've been underfunded for decades. Councillor Arif, you wanted to come in.
Yes, if I may, Mayor. So from our perspective, it's a really significant opportunity in Leeds, given the lead role that Leeds College of Building is playing, but it also supports the city's regional ambitions in relation to housing, regeneration, infrastructure growth. But additionally, Mayor, this actually complements our recent investment into additional post-16 construction training capacity that was made available by Leeds City Council, and that's on the back of allocation by the DFE. So fully supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Judson, then Councillor Ingle. Councillor Judson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I can fully support this. 35 years in the building industry, I know exactly how it works from top to bottom. Now, I am happy to see that the colleges that can apply for funding. I was disappointed that the £6 million funding for the Skills College in Keighley was taken back. So I'm hoping at some point in the future that can be put back on the table, because I think it's very important, especially with the rail infrastructure that's changing, that Keighley gets that second college to actually have more spaces. Speaking with Skills House, they're telling me they need more spaces for people to learn, so I want to approve on that one. But I'm very happy to see Keighley back on. I'd love to see the £6 million back into Keighley at some point, but this is a good idea. It's great.
Thank you. And can I say the work that Skills House does is exceptional, and Bradford has one of the lowest NEET figures in the country because of a lot of the work that they do. Obviously, we want to then make sure that those young Bradfordians have jobs to go to, and that's also the next challenge, I think, for Bradford. But thank you so much for the support, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Ingle.
I think any kind of training scheme is appropriate. I think we're desperate for it across West Yorkshire. I note that picked up on the thought of routing the CTEC scheme through the Leeds City College, and I heard the reference to using that as a spoke to reach outlying colleges in, I'm assuming, colleges throughout West Yorkshire. Again, I'm totally in agreement with that. I guess the question mark is how will that be administered to ensure that that the outlying colleges receive a fair access to that kind of funding?
Exactly that. And my role as mayor is to look at the whole of West Yorkshire and making sure all of our young people get those opportunities. So absolutely right. Felix, may you answer those questions for me?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. So Leeds College of Building, not Leeds City College. Leeds College of Building is already the hub. It's part of a government program, as I said. I mentioned the CTEC, the Construction Technical Excellence College. Leeds College of Building is already the regional hub with a number of spokes. So that is a national program. It's not one that the Combined Authority set up. Working with the DFE and with DWP, the expectation is that we work with our regional hub and the spokes in the area to deliver this program. So what we're proposing to do, as you've said, is to work with the College of Building, who know their hub, their spokes much better than we do and understand the industry better than we do. Their role will be to examine the projects, the proposals that come forward. Remember, this is only £6.7 million. So, and the need is now. So there's specific criteria that we're working with them on, what projects can take off immediately, the engagement with employers and the extent of that, the plans they've got, which ensures that learners, when they come through, the attrition rate is much lower than it's been to date, etc. So the role that they will play, more or less as a fund manager, is to run a process where they examine the proposals that come through and make a decision based on their expertise, which ones are best suited to the criteria that we've set out. The Combined Authority will have a seat on the investment board, so to speak, that is being set up, and we will report back to you on the progress there. But the colleges that make up the spokes will have an opportunity to bid into this, which includes Leeds College of Building itself, which has a project that is working up and will be considered as part of this.
Thank you. And regarding Keighley?
So the fund you talked about is not one that the Combined Authority, the £6 million is not one that the Combined Authority administered and therefore took away. That was not in our gift. It was run directly with central government. Very happy to come out and have a chat with you about the specific needs in Keighley. Keighley College is owned and run by Leeds City College, and I meet with the principal every 2-3 months. Very happy to have a conversation with you. We will have we'll come back to this board. We're running a little process. We'll come back to this board because we have some further funding on capital, which we're running through the process now just to work out how we do that. So there'll be a further opportunity for our colleges here to take advantage of some capital funds that we've got through integrated settlement. However, again, as the mayor said at the top, it's very limited funding. So the criteria is tight. The team is working that through. All the principals have been engaged in this, so they know the process we are running. We are working through a third opportunity with government to find out more creative ways to inject greater capital into our FE system. That is a bit of a long shot, but we're working that through with government, and we'll see where we get to.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Yes, just to respond to that, thank you for that. That is something I'd like to push forward. Just for clarity, I understand it wasn't the Combined Authority that took back the money. I knew it was the central government, but at some point this authority may be given more money, and it'd be nice for them to give a bit to Keighley. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
I can see there's going to be no greater champion for Bradford than you, Councillor Judson. So I'm getting my tin hat on in readiness. Thank you so much. Councillor Pinder.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's Councillor Pinder from Wakefield Council. I have a portfolio for district regeneration and regional growth. Now, us in Wakefield, we're absolutely welcome for spending across both points that have been mentioned so far, Felix and the Mayor. My question is, have we considered as a combined authority how once the beneficiaries of the training have gone through the training and been upskilled, which we welcome, we want our young people to have those skills to move on in life, has there been any consideration into how they then have the pathway to move into the jobs market? Now, I know that construction, there's a big push from national government. There are the jobs there at the moment. But in terms of manufacturing as a whole, we know it's a difficult market. Obviously, there's macro factors including energy costs, which are leading to a decline in manufacturing. So has there been consideration as to how those young people then move into work after we've put the investment in to train them up?
Thank you so much. And that's where our increase in apprenticeships and support for businesses is really important. We have seen, haven't we, entry-level jobs reducing, not just in West Yorkshire, but across the country. So we are really alive to that topic of the transition period from college and into work. But maybe, Felix, you'd like to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor, and what you said is absolutely spot on. So it's why I sort of set the scene at the beginning. All of these are part of a wider package. We expect to come back to you at a later date with further proposals for interventions around how we support people through technical pathways, clearer technical pathways into employment. But with construction in particular, I made the point earlier on, there's a particular challenge with the sector. Given the extent of vacancies in the sector, you would think that every young person who goes through and acquires a qualification or a skill goes straight into work. Mm-hmm. The attrition rate does not does not really make a lot of sense given the number of vacancies in the sector and the number of young people going in. That is a key part of the CTEC work. So it's not simply about increasing the number of people that go through the process with the expansion in capacity. Of course, that is important, but there's a greater emphasis on reducing the attrition rate. So we will work with the college, with College of Building and with the spokes to make sure that the processes are in place with employer engagement so that the learners are on a pathway straight into employment after their training or during their training and after their training. And it's worth noting that actually the College of Building is quite good at this. They have, don't quote me on the numbers, but I think around 80% of their learners go straight into employment. In many other colleges around the country, it's probably closer to 50-60%. And so they're quite a trendsetter in that space. We want to do more. We want to get those numbers much higher, and that is a particular emphasis on this work.
Thank you. And also just to say, as the push for further devolution, I do not understand why we do not have devolution of careers. The careers service that is delivered centrally. It makes no sense. So we are saying, give us the money for careers, and we know our businesses, we know our young people, we can work more closely with them. And also last week, we launched the West Yorkshire Promise, which is every young person will have meaningful work experience under 18. We will create more apprenticeships. Young people have access to the soft skills that businesses are crying out for. Some young people don't even know how to use a boss. These sorts of, blockages are stopping them delivering their potential. And also 2,000 young people will get more support for mental health, because we also know that poor mental health and poor low mood or poor well-being also stops people moving on, even if they've got those qualifications. So we are saying to all of our young people, we promise we will do everything in our power to enable you to flourish and to get in and stay in work as well. Because also work, if you're not employed and have not had a job by 26, invariably you don't work at all. So we all know, as councillors, you see it every day. So we collectively want to be a disruptor in that trajectory and to really make a difference. So thank you, Felix. If we're happy to move on to the recommendations. One, that we approve that the scheme proceeds through decision point 2 to 4 and the work commences on activity 5 delivery. 2, approves the combined authority funding of up to 6.7 million, the total scheme cost being 6.7 million. And 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway and tolerances set out in the business case summary. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Anyone in abstention? No, thank you so much. The recommendations have been carried. So moving on to another part of the jigsaw, apprenticeship brokerage. This is a pilot programme from government. Of course, as always, we would like this devolved to us because we know we would be able to do it more efficiently, but we continue to press government on that. What they want to do is to increase the take-up of apprenticeships. Felix, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. As I said at the top, since 2018-19, apprenticeship numbers have fallen by about 15% or so nationally, and it's fallen just as much in this region. This is a key part of what we are looking to address. This paper has come to you seeking a preemptive approval. We've put in a bid to government. The bid went in earlier this week. We hope and expect that we will be successful. If we are, this approval will allow us to move immediately without having to wait for your next meeting in September before we can get moving on this. In essence, what this is we already have an apprenticeship levy transfer service, and that allows us to work with businesses that are paying the levy but probably have some more money to pay in that they haven't, for us to transfer that, for them to transfer that to us, for us to spend it with them on apprentices that suits our mutual objectives. The challenge with apprenticeships is more now on the demand side than on the supply side. And by that I mean there are a lot of people who want to be apprentices who cannot find a place. The demand for apprentices is lower than the supply of apprentices or prospective apprentices in the system. And that is because businesses say the system is complex or it's expensive, it takes time and all of that. And we understand it. This bid we're putting into government allows us to run a brokerage service so we can marry demand with supply, make life easier for employers, and also make life easier for the prospective apprentices because their pathways are clearer, remove some of the encumbrances in the system, and increase the number of apprenticeships in the region. We are working with the Manufacturing Alliance, who will be a focal point for how this is administered and run across West Yorkshire. We are seeking your approval, if you are minded to do so, so that if we get approval, said when, if we get the approval, we are able to move immediately. Thank you.
I would say government are crazy if they don't give us the money because we've evidence that we can do this stuff and do it better than them. Any comments on this apprenticeship brokerage? Councillor Ingle.
Sorry, it's me again.
It's all right. This is what it's for.
I must admit, the idea of apprenticeships is something that we should never have given up back in the late 90s when the focus became academia and college, and almost forgetting the role and nature that not all students leaving school are up to an academic life. So I'm glad to see this coming back. I'm also happy to see this kind of proposal coming through. I was curious, however, as to the extent to which this concept has been tested with manufacturers, with companies, because getting their engagement, getting them on board, possibly faced with this kind of residual antipathy towards anything government, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs perceive, will follow through. So I'm all for it. I'm just curious about the extent to which the concept has been tested with potential companies.
Thank you, Councillor Ingle. Oh, very good question. Felix.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. Models like this have existed in other places in the past. Sorry. Models like this have existed in other places. So other places have had things like apprenticeship training agencies and others where they set up bodies that take on all the risk and all the work in creating and providing and training an apprentice to make life very much easier for the partners involved. It's very expensive, and not many of them have existed. But the expertise is there, the learning is there. We have worked with the West Yorkshire Manufacturing Alliance, which is a conglomerate of several manufacturing businesses and representative bodies. And they are very supportive and very willing and ready to work with us to implement this. So we are confident that we will have the support of businesses and especially manufacturers. There's another project that we'll talk about later on, which focuses on manufacturing. And that's why I painted the picture at the beginning. This is all a jigsaw that we are putting together. But we are confident that we've got employers on side with us.
Thank you so much. Councillor Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really important. Some of you may well be aware we've got a very popular Leeds Apprenticeship Fair. We get about 11,000 people through the door. My question, Felix, to you is, beyond the start of the apprenticeship itself, how are you going to measure the success in terms of onwards? Have you given any thought to that?
Thank you. So the progress.
Yeah, so progression is a key part of how this is set out. You are absolutely right. And what we've found, the numbers fairly stark in the last 5-6 years. Not only have the numbers that start apprenticeships fallen, but the numbers that complete, the completion rate is also falling. And that is real tragedy. So we're working to set this up such that we can incentivize greater completion rates. But the way to do this is not simply to say we'll give you more money. If you do that, of course, money makes a difference. But to make sure the support is there for learners all the way through. Sometimes what happens is by the time they finish their work, the apprenticeship, to when the actual exam or assessment takes place, that transition, that gap, is proven tricky for some apprentices, and they're falling through the crack. So we're working to set this up such that there is support all the way through, which is what a key part of what the brokerage service will be responsible for. We'll come back to you. We'll learn from it. It's a pilot, so we'll see where we get to.
And this is if we get the money. Councillor Corney.
Yeah, you'd probably be surprised if I didn't mention this, but so in terms of support, and it's great to hear that there's plans for within the pilot for support. Can we just shout out for care leavers, making sure that that there is special support, so that if care experienced people are applying for apprenticeships, and some of them we know that that numbers of care experienced people figure highly in NEET figures and stuff like that. So if we could just make sure that their support some of the support is tailored towards that specifically, I think that would be good, because they are our children. As councillors, we all have corporate parenting responsibility, and I think just to make sure that they're really that they're factored into that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Good stuff. Felix, if you're happy to take that on board. Councillor Judson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. More of a comment than a question, actually, but I echo Councillor Ingall's thoughts that apprentices should never have been stopped. I don't believe that academic achievement is the only thing necessary to go on to a good and prosperous employment. I myself didn't really do well. I ended up leaving school with a GCSE in drama, which were actually very, very apt for where I am here. So it just really fits in the chamber when you know how to act. So what I would say is, yes, I agree with it. Now, just to say this, the authority may want to get involved with this. Bradford Council are throwing a business fair in October at Bradford Live to get all the businesses in. But during Apprentice Week, we're also putting on another big event at Bradford Live for all the apprentices to come in and try and get jobs. I think working across the board on that one, I think it'll actually work well. So I'd like to extend that invitation if I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and that's a great example of partnership working. And I think across the whole of West Yorkshire, we all understand apprenticeships are the way to give those technical skills to our young people, and particularly as we have the highest number of jobs in manufacturing in West Yorkshire than anywhere else across the north. This is a real opportunity for us, isn't it, to get young people into really well-paid jobs and decent careers. Okie doke. No further comments. Let's go to recommendations. That the board considers and comments on the need for and scope for a pilot in West Yorkshire. That we approve that the board, in principle, accepts the funding up to 10 million should the application be successful. And that the board delegates the approval of the apprenticeship brokerage scheme to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself in accordance with the Combined Authorities Assurance Framework. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you so much. Moving on to Workwell 8B. This is a skills and employment support project proposal for Workwell. This is part of our partnership board, the Healthy Working Life programme, which is with the Integrated Care Board and ourselves. It was one of the first in the country. It was the chief executive of the ICB. That's his role, isn't it? Rob's role, and myself. We co-chair it. He's now left, but there is a new person in that seat, and we're going to support people who have become unwell to get into work, and to support people who are unwell and could fall out of work to support them to stay in work. And the Integrated Care Board is the designated lead body for coordinating the programme within West Yorkshire. But we're working absolutely hand in glove together to ensure our programmes are well aligned and there is consistency of service. So we are seeking approval to become the lead body for this money, because it's be locally led and delivered with each of the 5 local authorities, particularly because you'll know the changes of NHS England. There's a lot of reorganisation in the ICB, and there is a sense that as partners we are in a good place where we can deliver better outcomes or good outcomes with this money. And also it's a good example of where there's the opportunity to reform how public services more widely are funded and delivered. And I know that the new government's really looking into that, and how mayors can redesign the delivery of public service for better outcomes. And certainly I look forward, as someone who sits on the Alan Milburn review, to our recommendations in the autumn, which I think there will be a fair bit of focus on how we can work in partnership as a number of delivery bodies to ensure better outcomes for young people. So Felix, if I may hand over to you again, just to talk about further details.
Thank you, Mayor. As I said at the top, health and well-being was a key part of the local growth plan. We learned through COVID, without good health, there's no economy. As the Mayor said, we've got Healthy Working Life, which is our portfolio of programs that brings together funding from the ICB, from the Combined Authority, and works with partners, including local authorities and voluntary sector and the private sector, to ensure that the number of people who are classed as economically inactive due to health, of which we've got 105,000 in the region, we are able to slow down the rate of growth enough and eventually begin to bring that number down. It's been going up since COVID. This package, Workwell, is funding that the government is giving to the ICB. This paper is asking for you to accept a proposal from the ICB for this funding to be transferred to the Combined Authority, given the changes that the Mayor referred to at the ICB. Capacity is such that this is much better placed here in the Combined Authority, working with all the partners. The ICB will continue to be the accountable body to government, but this is a true test of our partnership, that we're able to work with each other, support each other, augment each other's capacity towards the same outcomes that we all share. This is £10 million over 3 years. It's aiming to support just over 10,000 people across the region. It will ensure that there is the infrastructure needed for a triage service, so that when somebody is at risk of falling out of work because of ill health, or somebody who is out of work due to ill health but is able to come back, can be triaged and will be then signposted to the right place to receive the support they need in the system. It makes the navigation of the system much easier. It ensures that the infrastructure is there across the region. We work with all the place partnerships, so this is actually happening very locally in all our places, and it will be part of the Healthy Working Life portfolio of programs, which also includes others like Trailblazer, Connect to Work, and others, which I'm very happy to talk to you about. So the proposal, the request of you is to accept this funding from the ICB continuing to be the accountable body to government, and to enable us to then take on the role, build the capacity to deliver this. Thank you.
Thank you. And some of the focuses have been on musculoskeletal, haven't they? And also on recovery after stroke, to get people back into a healthy place so they're not signed off for the rest of their life, but feel that they can come back to work. Is that the areas we're focusing on?
Yes, there are three main areas that people present with when it comes to health-related economic inactivity, and musculoskeletal is one of the main ones, one of the three. The other two being cardiovascular challenges, and also the third being mental health. So this allows us to be able to work across, but musculoskeletal is the big one. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Judson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, again, agree in principle to this. I think it's a good idea. If we can get people back into work, I think there's always a plus. The demands on, not in necessarily this case, but demands on welfare, demands on businesses where you've got long-term sick and inactivity, it's just so high. We need to do everything we can to get those people back into work, because in the long term, not only is it benefit them, it's a financial benefit to the country. So I agree in principle to this, yes. Thank you.
Thank you for that support. Yes, Councillor Court.
Yeah, I didn't need to declare an interest. I didn't need to declare an interest on this because I'm no longer receiving support. But I just want to give a very, very, very brief case study, if you like. So I needed a hip replacement, and as part of my process, when I went to the MSK team at the hospital in Calderdale, was a referral. Asked if I wanted to be referred on to the Better Living service that is done in conjunction with the council, and what they offered me was regular gym sessions to keep my strength up while I was waiting for my hip replacement, and also afterwards to make sure I was back up to full strength to keep me going and in work and fit and able. And it absolutely is like really spot on. It's very the delivery is very personal and very and works, and it's really tailored. And I just that's the sort of I thought that might be a useful example to know the sort of thing that's available. And there was no fuss, there was no like long waiting list or anything. It was like, would you be interested in this? Yes. Here you go. Got a phone call like the next week and referred straight onto the scheme, and it was very, very, very good. So just hope that's helpful.
We love these personal stories. Councillor Dransfield.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Dransfield from Kirklees. I don't think anybody could sort of argue against this proposal. It's got to have a definite positive feedback for both the people and also for the economy. I'd just be interested, though, in the three sort of key areas: muscular, skeletal, cardiovascular and mental health. Do we have a breakdown of where, if you like, where the maximum demand comes from in those three areas? I know right now there's a big problem with youth unemployment from mental health issues, and I think that's an area that we need to be addressing. They are the future, we need to get, and the benefit of work is that it does help with mental health issues rather than sitting at home and obsessing.
And certainly sat in your bedroom is very lonely, isn't it? It doesn't help your mental health when you are also isolated. Felix. I nearly called you councillor then. Felix.
He does everything else.
I will not comment on that. So I'm very happy to give you the numbers. I don't have it here with me, but you are right to say of the 105,000 people who are currently classed as economically inactive in West Yorkshire, the fastest growing cohort is young people, and the majority of young people are presenting with mental health and not the other two. So amongst young people, that is definitely the most popular, the most common cause that comes through. Amongst adults, it tends to be more musculoskeletal, but cardiovascular challenges are rising as well. Very happy to provide the numbers for you after this, if that's all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felix. Councillor Ingle.
Sorry to sound pedantic, but I've been informed by my officers that actually there is currently no actual work, health and skills plan. However, there are work and health plan and healthy working life plan. And I think it's just for the sake of tidying up and for future reference, is that we perhaps check that out and make sure we've got the right references.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you. And you've not been a pedant at all. We set out to write a work and health plan because that was the requirement of government at the beginning of last year. As I referred to, we've got a program, portfolio of programs under the Healthy Working Life banner. We had to respond to government with a plan with specific criteria to allow us to draw down the money. So we set out to write the work and health plan, which was the requirement of government at the time. This then moved on, and so it allowed us to draw down the Trailblazer funding, which was £10 million, and then topped up by another 10 million the next year. At the same time, the government provided the NHS with ICB with another 11 or so million pounds for an accelerator program, which is part of what we're doing. We then went on as this portfolio was growing to develop the Healthy Working Life Plan. The Healthy Working Life Plan pulls in some of the skills angles, but it doesn't go fully into a skills plan because we already knew we were writing a skills plan. That skills plan has now been launched by the Mayor. It's what we call the Region of Learning and Creativity strategy. I hope it's reassuring to you that it's the same team that has written all of these. So these are completely aligned. The main priorities in the Healthy Working Life Plan, there are 5 of them that focus on the system, on employer incentive, on personal incentives, on voluntary sector and employment West Yorkshire. These are the same things that we focus on in the Work and Health Plan. And in Employment West Yorkshire, there's funding that goes from the Region of Learning and Creativity Strategy into this. So I agree with you that if we had our time again, we're starting afresh, we probably have looked at the whole spectrum and done one thing, but it's just an evolution over time. But I'm just reassuring you that these things are linked. The final thing I'll say is the Healthy Working Life Board, which the Mayor chairs, met whilst I was on leave last week and considered a paper about the growing scope of this space. And the whole idea of that paper was to recognize what you've just said, that all of these things are linked. There's a lot that is changing. We need to look at the scope of that board and the work we're doing and make sure we are bringing all these linked activities into one space and not think of the board as a collection of funding programs, but as a group, as a space, a platform where we actually address these large issues and these wicked issues and the opportunities therein. So we are thinking about it in that form, but currently this is just the state of play.
And if I could just add, I think devolution gives us this opportunity as well, particularly with the integrated settlement, to be teaming and ladling resources and monies to tackle, as Felix says, the wicked issues that hold our communities back. And also, we need to get away from these funding streams that are dedicated, given to us by government with particular remits and outcomes and expectations from one department, and then we get another one from another department with different timescales, different outcomes, different deadlines, and we've got to have a cohesive offer, and that's why the integrated settlement and fiscal devolution, where we can make our own decisions without having to go back to Connect to Work. From government's point of view, they feel that that's been devolved, but actually it's just been given to us and we are the delivery arm. That's not devolution, because we're delivering what they've told us to deliver. So I do see your point about that cohesive approach, but you wanted to come back in, and then Ben.
I appreciate the clarification. It was just really one of reference and clarity, because the point is, if my officers perceive something doesn't exist and that there's 2 alternatives, then in a wider context, that could lead to confusion down line. That was my prime concern.
And a champion for officers and civil servants, we need that in our life. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's just to say that the other way of looking at this, that Felix and I talk about how we present it, is from the perspective of the recipient, and what does it look like from their experience? What do those practical pathways that get offered to them look like? And I think if we could present the system from the user's perspective as well as from the kind of top-down strategy perspective, it might make a lot more sense as to how practically these programs make a difference on the ground.
And I think that's really correct, that you go into the system from whatever way, whether it's health or skills or unemployment or poor mental health, you know, whichever way you come in, the offer will be there and you will be triaged in a way that everything is available for you to get you well and back into work. So thank you for that. Okie doke, move on to the approvals if there's no further comments. Okay, item approval 1, approve the delegation from West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board to the Combined Authority for system leadership of the programme, including associated funding of just over £10 million over 3 years. 2, approve a delegation to the Combined Authority's Chief Executive in consultation with myself to approve Workwell delivery plans in accordance with the Combined Authority's assurance framework. Can we move to votes, please? Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? The recommendations have been carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on now to item 9, economic development. This is 4 schemes. The first is business support infrastructure ecosystem. This is going to improve and expand the current West Yorkshire Business Growth Hub and bring together various bits of work. A redesign of the current model was identified following a recent independent business support review where too few businesses came to us when they needed help. The result is a no wrong door approach at one front door, bringing together the breadth of organisations in the region that offer support to businesses, whether that's us, whether that's you as local authorities, the Chambers of Commerce, the FSB, banks, law firms, accountants. The intention is to ensure that businesses get easy access to the right advice at the right time from the right people and the right organisation. So Felix, do you want to talk us through this development of our thinking? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So when I set out at the beginning the set of priorities that the local growth plan focused on, the last 2 that I talked about were around business. There's one that's about enabling all businesses to be successful, and there's one that's about our priority sectors, our 6 priority sectors. The first 2 that we're coming to you with focus on enabling all businesses to be successful, although there's an element of the second one, priority sectors in the second one. Essentially, we've had for the last decade and a half a particular model for business support which is focused almost entirely all our attention on what the Combined Authority and our predecessor and local authorities did. And it's sort of implicitly assumed that we were the business support system, which is really not true. And so the work that we've done together as a partnership has helped us understand the complex landscape of business support that exists out there to try to clarify that as much as possible. The Combined Authority last year approved a new model and a new approach for how we deliver business support in the region. And I'm very happy to talk to you about this offline if that is helpful or if you've not received that information. And these papers allow us to put that into place. Essentially, there are many other actors in the ecosystem, and you know them, I'm sure, better than I do, whether they are banks or universities or solicitors, accountants, trade bodies, etc., who all provide business support of one kind or another, in addition to what we as a combined authority is able to do, particularly working with local authorities. So this first paper is seeking funding approval from you for us to be able to build that infrastructure, that ecosystem that allows us to work. We are setting up affiliate arrangements with the chambers and others, allows us to be able to put that infrastructure in place so that the no wrong door approach that the mayor talked about can be put into practice and is effective. We launched the new growth hub, Acclimb, last week with a new website, and we sort of going to businesses to say there's support available, this is how you can navigate it. This ensures that there is that infrastructure behind what we are doing so that local authorities, and the next one we'll talk about local authorities, but it ensures that the wider ecosystem is equipped to meet the needs of business. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning with the local growth plan and the challenges that we set out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? No? Thank you so much, Fabulous. Okay, so let's go to the recommendations. That we approve the business support infrastructure ecosystem scheme through decision point 2 to 4 and commence activity 5, which is delivery. Approve the combined authorities funding of up to £7 million. The total scheme value is up to £8.9 million. Number 3, approve that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? No abstentions. Thank you so much. That is approved. Moving on to the next item, which is the local authority framework. This approval relates to the local authority side of the new business support service and will enable all 5 of our local authorities to provide local support to businesses as part of the wider ecosystem. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. So building on what we said in the approval you've just kindly given to us, this next one allows us to provide funding to local authorities to do, to offer the business support needed in your local places. The system we've had in place up till now was such that the combined authority was directly providing a certain amount of money which contributed towards the wage of a group of people who then went out to deliver certain tasks. We've had a lot of conversation, a lot of work over the last year, and what we are doing now is to have an outcomes framework with each local authority. So the combined authority is no longer saying we're providing X amount towards X person's wage or anything of the sort, but instead with each local authority we are agreeing, or we've agreed a set of outcomes, and we are providing funding which the local authority then deploys, having made its own decisions about how it wants to invest that sum of money. It's a combination of revenue and capital as is set out in the paper, and we are trying this approach. If it works, then it could become the model which allows us to provide greater flexibility to local authorities, because they are then able to decide, we will spend this money this way or that way, but we will guarantee to you that we will deliver these outcomes that are important to you, because these are the outcomes that we've signed on the dotted line with government to deliver. So this is the first step in that in that process. It's a key part of the new business growth hub for West Yorkshire, as I said, which is a 3-tiered model, the bottom tier being the website which we've launched. This, it speaks to the middle tier, and it provides local authority with the funding they need to provide that local support. The outcomes have been agreed between us and local authorities. We are contracting or commissioning local authorities to deliver those outcomes. With this money, local authorities will make their own decisions about how they then deploy that sum of money.
Thank you, Felix. And this is absolutely about you knowing your communities, your businesses, and enabling you to have the flex with the funding to make your own choices. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Courtney.
I'd just like to say thank you. I think sort of my previous, sitting on sort of the economy committee previously, I think this is something that I've probably brought up on a number of occasions about having a bit more autonomy within our own regions, and I'm really glad to see this coming forward now. So I just want to say thanks. Thanks, Felix.
Thank you so much. Okie doke, no comments. So can we move to the recommendations? So for the Business Infrastructure Local Authority Outcome Framework Scheme, the Investment Board, subject to conditions and in reference to 4.33, 4.34 and 4.35 in the report, that we, 1, approve that the Business Support Infrastructure Local Authority Framework Scheme proceeds through decision point 2 to 4 and work commences on activity 5, delivery. 2, approves the combined authorities funding of up to £9.2 million. The total scheme is £9.2 million. 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to West Yorkshire Supply Chain Programme. Very interesting that this was also raised with me yesterday at the event I spoke about earlier, but the radio frequency and microwave cluster, where we were talking about the Yorkshire Defence Plan and where the supply chain sits in all of that. So we have a really strong and growing advanced manufacturing cluster, and it's one of the sectors we're seeking to support as part of our local growth plan. Our specialism in the region is mainly in the supply chain. We don't have the big primes, we don't have the big car manufacturers, but we are absolute the suppliers of the rest of the country and the world. And some brilliant businesses making component parts for some of the biggest companies. And I was told yesterday, well, this week, that if we take out the parts made for satellites in Shipley, Silsden and Saltaire, all the satellites would fall out of the sky. So we do have a big part to play. So this scheme is designed to support businesses diversify their customer base and open up more supply chain opportunities with national and, of course, those international businesses that are equally important when it comes to export. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. You've set it out really, really clearly. This approval we are seeking from you will allow us, if you are kind enough to give it to us, allow us to work with our businesses to ensure they are plugged into the respective supply chains of their industries. Again, I go back to the picture we painted at the top. This is focusing on how we work, particularly with our priority sectors, particularly with businesses in manufacturing, who, being part of these key supply chains, makes a huge difference to the markets that they are able to play in. The business board has a wheel of enterprise which we set out, the Mayor's Business Advisor designed, and which we set out in the local growth plan. And one of the key wedges in that wheel is access to market, in addition to other wedges like access to know-how and finance and R&D and others. This speaks to the access to market bit in that wheel of enterprise. It will allow us to bring on a provider who will work with our businesses here to ensure they are plugged into global supply chains. We've done some work with the UN, for example, and the opportunities there. Our businesses need help to be able to exploit those opportunities. There are also national providers that may not be based here, but whose supply chain, provides opportunities for our businesses here. We don't have offshore capacity like the Humber, but a lot of the component parts are made here or can be made here. And our business is being exposed to the opportunities that makes a huge difference. And finally, when we go internationally and we take our businesses with us, the opportunities that opens up for them, sometimes we support them to attend trade shows and the rest. Sometimes they need the support to get the accreditation they need and to be fit to work or to be part of the supply chains. This allows us to work with businesses and sometimes even co-invest with them to make sure they are ready to take part. So that's why this is in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? No? Great stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you for that clarity, Felix. Okay, so moving on to the approvals. One, that we approve that the West Yorkshire Supply Chain Programme proceeds to decision point 5 to delivery and work commences. Number 2, approves the Combined Authorities funding of £2 million. The total scheme is 2.3 million. And 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval routes and tolerances set out in the business case summary. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. And none against and no abstentions. Okay, moving on. That recommendation has been carried. Moving on to Made Smarter Manufacturing. This is a hugely successful programme. And again, we're looking to grow our manufacturing sector, connecting business to digital tools, leadership and skills to grow as part of a national programme. Now, the Made Smarter Yorkshire and Humber programme is delivered by a really collaborative relationship between ourselves and South Yorkshire, with support from Hull and East Yorkshire Combined Authority and York and North Yorkshire. And a really good example of really the White Rose mayors working very closely together to deliver better outcomes for all of our businesses. So, Felix, over to you for Made Smarter.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the last of the 4 in this package. This program has been running for a few years now, and as the Mayor said, it's a regional program. It's anchored at the South Yorkshire Combined Authority, The approval we are seeking from you allows us to provide this funding into the bucket for the rest of the region, out of which our manufacturing businesses will then receive the support that they need. Essentially, the businesses that go through this program get the support they need to think through what investment they require to increase their productivity, what capital equipment they need. There is then sometimes a contribution from this program towards the acquisition of such capital. There's also an opportunity once we open that door to have those conversations with the businesses to explore their skills needs, their conversations with universities or exposure to universities, international, etc. And we use those links to feed into some of the other programs that we've either talked about or that we'll bring to you in the future. So that is what this is. The funding will be run as part of a regional program. We've learned in the last week, I've only been back on Tuesday, I think I saw it on Tuesday, that there's a little bit more funding that will be coming through this program, but because of time constraints, that will go directly to South Yorkshire on everybody's behalf, which makes sense because we don't want to stand in the way of that. But this allows us to build that resource for the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to approvals. The Made Smarter Manufacturing Scheme, subject to conditions and with reference to 4.65 in the report. 1, that we approve that the Made Smarter Manufacturing Scheme proceeds through decision point 2 to 4 and work commences on activity 5, which is delivery. 2, approves the Combined Authorities funding of up to just £1 million. The total scheme cost is £2.4 million. 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in business case summary attached to the report. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. None against and no abstentions. That has been approved. Moving on to regeneration. Now, this approval in front of us relates to the old medical school at Leeds Teaching Hospital, a really beautiful building, actually, and forms part of our investment zone programme. The project will restore and refurbish the listed old medical school to bring it back to sustainable, productive economic use, providing 5,000 square metres of high-quality innovation workspace for the health tech sector. And combined with the Emily Siddon Health Innovation Centre, I opened at Huddersfield University, which is an amazing building if you have not been. We are really growing the amount of lab space available for innovative businesses across the region and really showing the value of our investment zone and our approach to the investment zone that was not just one ring-fenced part of our region, but actually used our 3 amazing universities, Bradford, Huddersfield and Leeds, to draw our investment zone across the whole region. So it's an exciting time, and particularly when businesses say, health tech businesses say there's not enough lab space in West Yorkshire, this is a really good opportune moment. So if I could pass over to Ruth Davison, our Interim Director of Environment and Place, to set out further details. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Mayor, and I am glad to give Felix a little break. So I suppose the paper sets out how, as a combined authority, we take a programme approach to how we deliver employment and commercial space now that we have integrated settlements. So we deliver across all 5 local authority areas. When government created our integrated settlement programme, it brought together 3 separate streams of money that deliver commercial and employment land space. So we have our investment zone, as the Mayor has indicated, we have some city densification fund, and we also have local growth fund, and we have plans coming forward in each local authority area that will deliver priorities for local places. The project today is linked to the investment zone, and what we have is a project that will bring forward some much needed floor space. So this is part of our integrated settlement target, and actually creates a substantial movement as to what we need to deliver in that space. So the cost of the project, £30,807,860, but some private sector investment has come in to fund just over 10 million of that, so that the combined authority's contribution to the scheme is 20,000. That, sorry, 20 million. That, yeah, if only it was 20,000. That that gives us a very high value for money in terms of this particular investment. This type of investment is whereby the combined authority is recognising that to bring schemes forward, quite often in West Yorkshire there is viability gap. So this grant really is what allows this scheme to come forward and to be deliverable. The All Medical School is coming today as an outline business case, so if you give your approval today, that scheme is then worked up in further detail and goes through the assurance process to have a full business case, which is when we actually start to invest our funding. Subject to any questions, that presents the case.
Super. Any questions on the Old Medical School? No? Thank you so much. As Ruth says, the approval for the release of the full monies will be in the future. So, yes, please. I'm so sorry I didn't see your hand. Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, I just think that it's great to see this sort of investment from national and regional government, which actually then helps, it's a key driver in helping all of our local authorities to increase our economic activity and to grow our own economies. And even though this is sort of based in Leeds, there in future no doubt will be people from all of our local authorities coming and working there. And also having the ideas, but having spaces to have the ideas then to grow their own businesses. So I really welcome this, and to use an old building to bring life back into heritage buildings is great to see as well, because that's what makes our area in West Yorkshire just so very special. The beautiful heritage that we've got here, and to see life being breathed back into it is amazing.
And as with all of these things, the interconnected nature of building the tram to go up there, and all of that interconnected regeneration is it's a huge prize, and I think we should all lean into that opportunity. Okie doke. Yes, Councillor Pinder.
Yes, just while we're on the topic of a West Yorkshire investment zone, on the Eastern Grove corridor we have Langthwaite Business Park, which just happens to be in my ward of South Hemphill and South Kirby, which is great. We have a business on there, ADE Power, fantastic manufacturer providing high quality local jobs who are looking to expand on the premises. Can I have your assurance today that you will look strongly into working with ADE Power on the regeneration currently taking part on behalf of the combined authority?
Thank you, Councillor Pinder. And Langthwaite is a really interesting mixed group of businesses. I think they are a fabulous business, and I really admire their ambition. You know, we have some land on Langthwaite, and we're looking at the major proposals. It's not just them that have ideas. There's a number of businesses that also have ideas, but we're very happy to maybe at a further meeting to put that on the agenda. Ruth, if you would like to just add to that.
Yes, Councillor, to assure you, I have a meeting set up with your Director of Development in August to discuss that in detail. I think that we already have some land at that particular site, but we are considering options to try and see how many of the different proposals that come forward can be built within the same proximity. And I think the other thing that we are trying to do is to give assurance that we have to go through a procurement process, but some current process that's happening at the moment, we are in discussions on detail with that particular company, just so that we're taking them along with us on our process to make sure that the opportunity is fair and transparent to all.
But congratulations for lobbying for your ward. Very good. Okay, I've got the cut of your jib, so... Okay, thank you, Councillor Pinder. It's very welcome. Okay, let's move on to approvals. Okay, that we approve the Old Medical School scheme proceeds through decision point 3, the outline business case, and work commences on activity 4, the full business case. And 2, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary attached to the report. In favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. No abstentions and none against. That is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 11. This is on the environment and climate change. This is Home Energy West Yorkshire Phase 2, the Home Energy Loan Scheme. And this is providing access to affordable finance for retrofitting purposes. It's expected to improve thermal comfort, reduce exposure to cold conditions, and importantly, lower energy bills. And the scheme will strengthen household resilience to future energy price volatility. And we know here in West Yorkshire, We have some of the coldest, windiest houses in the country, and we have too many people, and it should shame us, living in fuel poverty. So this is an approach where we can enable people to take to get support from us to warm up their homes and lower their energy bills. So if I may hand over to, it's to yourself, is it Ruth? Thank you.
It is, thank you. So councillors, firstly, we have quite a large retrofit scheme across West Yorkshire, and government funds quite a lot of that improvement for social homes. As a combined authority, we therefore have to think creatively about how we support people who are in their own private rented or own occupied homes. And one of the ways in which we have developed a scheme to do that is by creating this extremely low cost loan product. There has been a previous phase of this loan product that has been rolled out across West Yorkshire that has been well used and created impact across each local authority area. The retrofit programme that we have is focused on a number of outcomes, so it focuses on not only, as the Mayor has suggested, energy efficient homes, but it also supports the health and well-being of residents and is one of the tools that supports cost of living for homes that have been improved because they benefit from lower energy bills. Loans actually enable quite a wide range of intervention, so it allows double glazed windows, for example, through to things like cavity wall insulation, as well as considering things such as battery storage systems or solar panels. The scheme, if approved today, will support approximately 590 homes with energy improvements. The average loan amount is anticipated to be around 9,000 from our previous pilot, but what we have done on this occasion is we've reduced the minimal loan that needs to be taken forward, so that what that does is it allows a greater range of people to benefit from this opportunity. So the lowest loan will now be £1,500. The scheme itself, total cost is £6,974,412. But 5,500,000 is going to be borrowed and becomes the recyclable element of this scheme. It's anticipated that the administration costs will be paid by the low element of risk, interest that this scheme charges, which is approximately 3%. Again, these targets are really outside our integrated settlement, but what they do is they benefit residents that actually currently live outside of the...
Sorry, Ruth, is someone's phone? Is it yourself, Keith? Oh yeah, it was a great tune. We were all jigging along. Carry on, Ruth.
No. So ultimately, the administration costs would be paid by the low interest that we are charging in this scheme. The request today is really for approval of this to move through into delivery.
Thank you. And the scheme is, I think, is a good development in that it'll wash its own face, so it'll be recyclable. And I think lowering the threshold means that people who would be maybe a bit cautious about taking out a loan for 5,000 or 6,000 could just take out a smaller loan and just get the windows done. And I must say, and you'll have this as councillors, I visited a lady who was recovering from cancer, and she'd had her home renovated, and her bills had gone down, and she was really pleased about that. But she also said because she'd had the windows done, her living room was quieter from the fools on their mopeds going up and down her street. And so she said, my well-being is also better, not just about the bills, but in the summer her well-being was better. So I think this is an offer for those people who don't necessarily benefit from the social home projects, but they rent or they've got their own home, but they just can't afford to buy it outright. So I think hopefully we've got most communities covered. Councillor Judson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify more than anything, we're not talking about the specifics of delivery, but I am going to talk about the specifics of delivery. We're looking at scheme summaries 4.4, the battery home storage systems, and then 4.8, the 590 loans by November to enable owner-occupiers and private landlords to retrofit their properties. I really believe that we must insist that private landlords do have battery storage, because they're the ones that are actually going to get benefit of this. Because if they don't have battery storage, the people that are all in there are not going to get the benefits during the day, because at night time it's not going to be working, it's going to get sold back to the grid. The landlords are going to get the benefit, and the grid's going to get the benefit, but not the tenants. So I understand they'll have the choice if it's owner-occupier, but for private landlords, I think there needs to be a little bit more specifics to make sure that it's actually the tenants that get the benefit of this.
A very good point. Ruth?
This is one of a multitude of offers that we have. So one of the things that we do when we retrofit a property is we go out and we do a survey, and that makes recommendations as to what the best things are to do. And often it is focused both on the benefit to the resident, the benefit in terms of cost, so you know, as in how we save cost on energy bills. It's also about how we create the energy efficiency rating on the property, but also any carbon reduction. So it does take into account all three of those things when we do those surveys and make the recommendations. What we aren't able to do is insist that somebody takes a loan or takes a particular product, but we do try to steer them in the right direction by giving them the relevant advice.
I see what you're saying, though, Councillor Judson, about the fact that if the landlord is taking out the loan and the tenant sees no benefit, that does seem a bit unfair. But maybe it's something we can take away. I know that we did have early conversations about a good landlord charter. Is that the place where that could potentially sit? We could have further conversations on that, but I do appreciate the filter with which you've asked that question, because this is about people often on low incomes and not seeing the benefit from the investment in a property that's gone up in value because of our support. So I see the value of that. Okie doke. Any further comments? No? Thank you. Let's go to approvals. Okie doke. Moving on. So part one, we approve that the Phase 2 Home Energy Loan Scheme proceeds through decision point 2 to 4 and work commences on activity 5, delivery. 2, that we approve the Combined Authorities funding of 6.9 million and the total scheme is 6.9 million. And 3, approve that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary attached to the report. All those in favour? Thank you. None against and no abstentions. That has passed. So moving on to the Brighouse Flood Alleviation Scheme Phase 1. We know, don't we, the catastrophic effects of flooding across our region. And what used to be a once-in-a-lifetime catastrophe is now every 2 years, seemingly. This scheme in Brighouse will repair and replace existing flood defences along the River Calder and install new landscape improvement at Wellhome Park and Winnie Hill Park to mitigate the risk of flooding from Clifton Beck. Can I ask Ruth Davison to speak to this? But also, if I may, as it's a Calderdale scheme, perhaps I could invite Councillor Ingle to potentially comment on this as well. But Ruth, over to you in the first instance.
Thank you, Mayor. So this approval today is a change request. This is a scheme that has previously been through and been approved by the Combined Authority. It's important to note that with this type of flood scheme, that actually it's a flood scheme that's managed by the Environment Agency and they are the predominant funder. So the total scheme is over 30 million, but our investment in it is just under 4.5 million. So there are two elements to the change request that we're bringing forward today. The first is to extend the delivery. So this is a scheme that has multiple parts of delivery and some of them have been complete. In fact, I think in Calderdale there's an opening in a week or two that's linked to this particular scheme and a park that's been open to the public again. But there has been some delays on this scheme. Both, 3 of them are set out in the report. One of them was an endangered species, a badger set that was come in and we needed to work within the legislation to make sure that the scheme moved forward at the right point. There was also Storm Claudia that created significant damage and that had to be remediated before the scheme could move forward. And the final issue has been in terms of the quality of some of the materials on the site that needed actually to be replaced, and that hadn't been expected at the start of the scheme. So the second element of the change request, though, is to remove an element of the scheme. So previously, some improvements to the Phoenix Bridge element were going to take place under this scheme, but actually my colleagues in transport delivered those improvements through one of the transport schemes, and therefore as a consequence we're reducing the scope of this scheme because it's already been delivered. It's not that we're actually taking something out and choosing not to take it forward. As the Mayor has indicated, this is a really vital scheme. So 55 residential properties will be safeguarded as a result of this, 359 non-residential properties, and also as a result of its location, it's a significant reduction in the flood risk linked to the transport network in Calderdale.
Thank you so much. And of course, it's not just homes and businesses, but like you say, transport network can have a massive economic impact on our region. Councillor Ingle.
Thank you for that, Tracy. Yeah, I'm coming from Calderdale, and one of my responsibilities is planning, which is really looking at house building in its primary sense. And when I've spoken to our planners, they say one thing categorises Calderdale: it's hilly and it's wet. Yeah. And I've seen the effects of the floods going down Calder Valley through Mytham Royd, Hebden Bridge, and down through Elland and into Brighouse. And it's devastating. It truly is. Unless you've seen it, you just wouldn't believe it. So in terms of a proposal and in terms of the amendments which are being put forward as part of this proposal, I can't but back it.
Thank you so much. When I just become mayor and I visited the Mytham Royd flood defence opening, that community were emotionally overwhelmed that finally they could stop worrying and they could settle and you know, start a business, raise a family. It makes a massive difference to community well-being as well. So thank you so much for that support, Councillor Ingle. Yes, Councillor Dransfield.
Can I just sort of declare an interest that flood defence is very, very important, because one of my business is actually in Murfield, and I believe we're downstream of all these flood defences, which does mean actually that there's more water coming down to us. And I really do think that, you know, we've got to look at this as a much longer or a more detailed problem, that when you save flooding in one area, you are diverting it further down. I mean, from our perspective, we've taken out some private flood prevention schemes, but, you know, the water does go somewhere. And I think, you know, in terms of planning as well, we need to be looking at not necessarily building on floodplains, or indeed that we make, if we are building there, that they are resilient and above any potential flood levels. But yes, I can't argue against flood alleviation schemes, but just beware that when you save your property, it's going downstream.
Councillor Dransfield, I couldn't agree more. That's why with our local nature recovery plan, we are intending to get upstream. So we, whether that's leaky dams, whether that's what they called, Ruth, those dips, culverts, where they're dips in the landscape that then become lakes, as and when the water table rises, to hold water further upstream. But you're so right, and water does not respect boundaries either. So that's why we're working closely with mayors across the whole of Yorkshire to tackle this problem. But we've got to get upstream. You're dead right. Councillor Courtney. And
yeah,
then
I'm quite involved in the sort of flood alleviation scheme world through having lived in Hebden Bridge for more than 20 years and now in Todmorden. So, but I would say rest assured to a certain extent that the Environment Agency and the government has got now a very strong emphasis on things like slowing the flow of water down by things like leaky dams and attenuation ponds and all sorts of other, and I know yourself,
attenuation ponds, that's what I was trying to think of.
You have been out on moorlands planting sphagnum plugs to help build up moors as well, because they obviously act as really important sponges in the area. So I think it's a really good point, but I think that the Environment Agency, I know that the Environment Agency are very, very keen on actually keeping the water out of the river channels as far as possible, so that doesn't have that knock-on effect or limits the knock-on effect that you've mentioned. So, but it is a good point.
Indeed, and the anticipation of hotter summers and wetter winters coming down the track. Councillor Judson.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Courtney just said exactly what I was going to say. The rule of basic flood alleviation is slow the water down. Same with rivers and everything, you slow the water down. The added potential of flooding, especially higher up through Mythermoyd and into Hebden Bridge, coming from the Calderdale Energy Park, that there is massive concern about the water diverted from there, and the fact that a lot of the peat that's gathered in the water, a lot of the sphagnum moss, is all going to be removed. It will be banked and put down, but during the course of the actual construction, it is a problem. So we do need to look at that a lot further. I do agree with this is absolutely essential, but I take your point on fully. But we do actually, yes, need to get upstream quickly and get on top of it there. Thank you.
Thank you, and I wonder, it's not light reading, but whether we could share our local nature recovery plan with our members. And you can, at your leisure, have a look at some of the work that we've been doing to do exactly that, to get further upstream. Thank you so much. Okay, so no further comments. Can we approve the change request to the Brickhouse Flood Alleviation Scheme to extend the scheme's delivery timeframes from the 31st of March 26 to the 31st of March 28, reduce the scope of the scheme to remove the Phoenix Bridge element as it's already been delivered, approve the future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary attached to the report. Can we now turn to vote on the recommendations? In favour? Thank you. None against and no abstentions. That has been carried, and we are so nearly there, folks. 5 minutes to go. Item 12, Creative Industries, Culture, Heritage and Sport. This is approval for West Yorkshire Sports Facility provision, 3G pitches. Expanding access to all-weather sports pitches. It was part of my manifesto pledge back in 2024. So I'm really delighted that we're making progress. And ensuring young people have access to excellent sports facilities is absolutely crucial to our ambitions for our young people across the region. And we know that the opportunities from the Football Foundation were to build 3G pitches, but they needed much funding. Local authorities didn't have the much funding, so we felt this was an opportunity, and there will be 5 across our region, 1 in every local authority. But we are really ambitious on this programme, and at least would like to double it because the need is so great. But if I could pass over to Felix to carry this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And you'll be glad to know this is the last time you hear from me today. I should have said, Mayor, if you don't mind, right, one of the early papers, and I'm saying this just for the minuting, in the local business support ecosystem papers, that the outcomes that you've got in the papers are stretch targets that we're working through with partners. So with your approval, we're now going to work through with individual partner and refine these, so it's possible that eventual targets, the eventual numbers might be a bit different from what you've seen, and if we need to report back on that, we're very happy to do so. Coming back to this paper, what we are seeking is, and this paper really will help us deliver on one of the key mayoral manifesto pledges. But importantly, in the local growth plan, we set out as in one of the 5 priorities that I talked about under place, culture, heritage and sport. The key ambition we set out was to increase access to and participation in culture, heritage and sport as a key way of improving and transforming really the quality of life of our residents. And we're focusing on 3G pitches today because I work with the Football Foundation. It's led to the point where they are prepared to provide 70 to 80% of the funding needed to deliver 3G pitches. Across West Yorkshire, we have a gap of about 134 3G pitches. So in effect, we need 134 more 3G pitches in West Yorkshire just to be on a par given the population size. So this is really just the beginning. It won't solve the problem. We have a huge gap. But if this model works, then it allows us, it gives us a way of trying to deal with this in the future. Local authorities will make a contribution. Local authorities will make a contribution, but with our contribution and the contribution from the individual sort of community sports clubs or teams, we are then able to make up the match required, which the Football Foundation will then provide the bulk of the funding for. the approval we are asking for today is for us to provide a facility for up to £200,000, which local authorities need to develop the case for each of the pitches in their area. Once they've done that, so some might need support with either planning or any feasibility study to understand what might be under the ground, whatever else, we are able to provide a bit of funding for local authorities to be able to do that. Once they've done that, an application will then be put together by local authorities and us to the Football Association, Football Foundation, and if they are minded to then approve that, our match funding will then fall in behind that. Given that they are the primary funder, it's important that they are the ones leading all the due diligence, and we fall in behind that on the back of their work. So this approval allows this to be possible, but it's not the approval to spend the the total amount that makes up the match funding. It allows us to have our case ready and submitted to the Football Foundation. If and when this hopefully is all goes through and we're successful, we expect to have a minimum of 5 pitches. There might be more. We have a ceiling to how much money we've got, but where the pitches may be owned by a local authority, it might cost a bit less, and so we might be able to fund more pitches, but we expect to fund at least 5, 1 in each area. We are hoping to be able to do more than that. And local authorities are deciding which pitches in their area come forward. So it's not for the combined authority to decide this. Local authorities decide that. We work with our local authority partners then to build that case, put the submission into the Football Foundation, and if we're successful, we then provide our match funding for this to be possible. Thank you.
Super. Councillor Aaron.
Thank you, Felix. That's very helpful context. As somebody who's got the spot portfolio here in Leeds, there's a real genuine need for the pitches, and actually it's a very resource-intensive and laborious process to go through the application process. So it's going to be really much needed. And I think what's great is that the local authority decides where these pitches go. So yeah, I think this is really important. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ingle.
I actually, again, behind this because I see sport is fundamental to the way we live. In Calderdale, we've got a certain amount of antisocial behaviour from the teens, youth, and sport, I think, provide a great outlet for that, to address that issue. I think from when I played football well into my 30s, I've seen the kind of removal of football pitches from across the borough, unfortunately, compared to when I was playing in the 70s, early 80s. There is, well, the number of pitches have actually shrunk by an order of magnitude. So anything that begins to put that back, I think, is very valuable. But also, I don't know if it's part of the consideration of your proposal as to how local authorities can actually look at how they can rebuild and re-engage with some of our youth on these facilities.
That's very much for a longer conversation, but I wonder, was it jumpers for goalposts is the question. Councillor Pinder.
Yes, Councillor Ingles just covered the majority of what I was going to say, and obviously I cannot comment with my youthfulness on what it was like in the 1970s, but there's a clear need for investment in sporting facilities within all areas of our combined authority. So I absolutely welcome this and welcome that it links in to the need and want of this combined authority to alleviate mental health issues around the district. So absolutely welcome this investment.
Thank you so much. We won't be doing five-a-sides anytime soon. Councillor Judson.
Thank you. I actually echo the exact things. We are massively under-provisioned. I think this is long overdue. As you can tell, I'm incredibly athletic myself, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses, so brilliant.
Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, and maybe we need to grow some of our own footballers as well, so that we have can see future successes on the world stage.
Oh yeah, weren't they inspiring our England footballers? Okay, thank you so much. If we're happy to move to the approvals, the West Yorkshire Sports Facilities Provision, the 3G Pitches programme proceeds through decision point 1, strategic assessment, and work commences on the programme business case. 2, approves development funding of up to £200,000 to progress the scheme to decision point 2 to 4. Programme business case, taking the total scheme approval to 200,000. 3, approves that future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathway, approval route and tolerances set out in the business case summary attached to the report. In favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. And none against and no abstentions. Phew. That is it. We got to the end. But may I just say, Councillor Bob Felsted, thank you for joining us today as the new chair of the Scrutiny Committee. I think having a critical friend and an emboldened scrutiny panel, obviously there are changes in the panel, but I really appreciate your attention that you've paid to the meeting today. And I look forward to further conversations in a different guise in the Scrutiny Committee. So thank you so much for coming. Also, I wonder, as this is the first meeting, would everybody be happy to maybe have a photograph together to mark our first investment board meeting? I'd be delighted if you wouldn't mind staying for a moment. Members, the date of the next meeting, the 3rd of September. So I wish you all a very happy, restful summer. It's been quite a year, hasn't it, politically, and I'm sure you're sick of campaigning. So I think you put your feet up and get some well-earned rest. But in the meanwhile, if you'd be happy to have a photo in front of the board, I'd be delighted as well. Thank you. Thank you to officers for all the support. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.